holy prophets he promised of old, that he would save us
Welcome to
from our
Science, Scripture, and
enemies,
Salvation.
from the
Welcome to
hands of
Science,
all who
Scripture, and
hate us.
Salvation, a radio
He
ministry of the
promised to
Institute
show
for
mercy
Creation
to our
Research.
fathers,
In this program, we want to
and to
encourage you
remember
in your
his
Christian
holy
faith by showing
covenant.
how scientific evidence
This was
supports
the
the
oath he
Bible,
swore to our
particularly the
father
Genesis
Abraham,
account. The book of
to set us
Genesis
free
lays the
from the
foundation
hands
for
of
all
our
matters
enemies,
addressed in the rest of the
free to
Bible. The
worship
nature
him
of God,
without
His
fear,
sovereignty in
holy
creation,
and
man's
righteous in his
purpose,
sight all
sin,
the days
marriage,
of our
family,
life.
and why we need a
My
Savior
child
are
shall
all
be
introduced
called the
and
prophet
explained
of the
in
Most
Genesis.
High,
When we see
for
that the
you will
first and
go
most
before the
foundational book
Lord
of the Bible
to
can be
prepare
trusted
his
in all
word,
matters, including
to give
science,
his people
it builds
knowledge of
confidence in the rest of the
salvation
inspired Word
by the
all the way to
forgiveness
Revelation.
of their sins.
On today's show, we'll be joined
The
by
tender
Brian Thomas,
compassion of
science
our
writer
God,
with the
the
Institute for
dawn from
Creation
on high
Research.
shall break
Here's
upon
Brian
us,
Thomas.
to shine on those who
I
dwell
have a
in
friend
darkness
who,
and the
when
shadow
he
of
first
death,
came to Christ, he
and
was
to
living in
guide our
Spain.
feet into the
He
way
did
of
not know
peace.
much about the Bible. He grew up
Gloria
in Europe,
patri
so
et filio,
very
et
secular,
spiritu
very
Sancto,
non-biblical in his mindset.
sicut erat in
But he came to Christ
principio et
nonetheless,
nunc et
and
semper,
he wanted to
et in
know more
saecula
about his new faith.
saeculorum.
And so one of the church
Amen.
members at his community in
Lord,
Spain
shine
came up
on
to him and
those
said,
who
"Hey,
dwell in
did you know that
darkness
dinosaurs are
and
described in the Bible?"
shadow of
And he said,
death.
"Nope, I had no idea. What are you even talking about?"
With
And then he
confidence
said,
let
"Well,
us pray
come
to
on
the
by
Father,
in my house,
who
and
will
we'll have
give the
dinner, and we'll talk
Virgin
about
Mary
the
should surpass
dinosaurs
all
that are
creatures in
described in
heaven
the Bible."
and earth.
He said, "Okay, I want to learn."
Look upon the mother
And
of
my
your
friend told
Son,
me he's never doubted since then
We are
that
grateful
we
to
actually
you,
have
Father of
indications of
mercy,
dinosaurs in the
for you
Bible,
gave us
and
Mary to be our
he's
mother
been
and
more and
our
more fascinated with
model.
Bible study
Through
ever
her
since.
intercession, cleanse our
So we want to look at
hearts.
this question, are dinosaurs
You
in the
inspired
Bible?
Mary to be
And
attentive
I've
to your word and
investigated
faithful in
the
your
scripture
service.
on this
Through her
issue,
intercession,
and I
give
think
us
that there
the
may
gifts
be
of the
one.
Holy
But
Spirit.
before I talk about the one
You
possible
strengthened
dinosaur
Mary at the foot of the
that may
cross
be in the
and filled her
Bible,
with joy at the
I want to
resurrection
highlight
of your
some
Son.
other extinct
Through her
reptiles.
intercession, relieve our
The
distress
anatomy
and
is
strengthen
described,
our
their
hope.
life habits, and in some cases habitats are described, and they just simply don't match creatures that are alive today. But I'm open to the possibility that these creatures were alive during biblical times and have since gone extinct. After all, extinction occurs still today. It's still occurring today because of, in many cases, hunting and habitat loss due to human expansion. Even maybe climate change contributes. So extinctions are happening today through these means. Why would they not have also happened in the past? And if that's the case, maybe we have creatures that have lived in the past that have since gone extinct, but they were described by eyewitnesses. For example, what do we make of this passage in Isaiah 14, verse 29, that says, "Do not rejoice, all you of Philistia, because the rod that struck you is broken. For out of the serpent's roots will come forth a viper, and its offspring will be a fiery flying serpent." Now he's using animals as analogies. We know what a serpent is. It's a reptile, basically the same word. We know what a viper is. It's a snake or serpentine slithering reptile. But what is a fiery flying serpent? Is there such thing as a flying serpent? Well, of course we know flying serpents from fossils. They're called pterosaurs. Flying serpents certainly existed. We know them from fossils. But not only does Isaiah, in this one verse, mention a fiery flying serpent, but he does also in chapter 30, verse 6. So we have flying serpents in the Bible. You know, maybe it means flying serpents. Maybe it means pterosaurs were flying around, and that the people who initially heard the words of Isaiah were familiar with this kind of creature. This does make sense, after all, when we consider winged serpents commonly depicted in Egyptian art, in even South American art, like in Incan seal, and other cultures' artifacts, and legends have flying serpents. We also want to consider what was Leviathan. Certainly Leviathan, described in great detail in Job chapter 41, with lots of anatomy descriptions, big mouth, lots of teeth, scales on its hide. So it's a serpent, and it's giant. It's just absolutely fearsome, and it's in the water. It's a sea creature. And yet, in Job 41, we read that it leaves its marks in the mire, which means it must climb up on a muddy bank. So it's some kind of creature that swims in the ocean, but then also climbs up on land some of the time. So it's maybe amphibious reptile, a giant amphibious reptile. What could this thing have been? Interestingly, just last year or so, paleontologists reinvestigated and redescribed a fossil that they found in northern Africa, in Egypt, called Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus aegypticus, huge sail-backed creature with an enormous mouth, longer and larger than T-Rex even, but it had much longer forearms than T-Rex had, and so secular researchers suggest that maybe this creature was able to swim, but also crawl around on land. Perhaps Spinosaurus was Leviathan. We don't know. We may never know. But we do know that there are fossils of giant, enormous, large-mouthed, tooth-filled creatures that could match the description given in Leviathan. The New Testament may even describe an extinct creature. When Jesus was talking about Jonah, we think of Jonah in the belly of a whale, but he used the word ketos, which, if you look at outside the Bible, ancient Greek sources, they use that word to mean dog-headed sea serpent. Maybe that was alive in Jesus' time. In the next segment, we'll look at a possible dinosaur in the Bible.
It's time for a short break. Stay with us. From sharks to butterflies, bats to orangutans, we can't help but marvel at the stunning and amusing creatures God has made. If you and your kids enjoy learning about animals, then you'll love our book, Guide to Animals, with its beautiful, full-color images and fascinating facts. Published by the Institute for Creation Research, Guide to Animals provides answers to many popular questions about the animal kingdom. How do chameleons change colors? How do jellyfish live without a brain? And what happened to the dinosaurs and other extinct animals? Guide to Animals shows how everything that can slither, crawl, soar, or swim displays the handiwork of God. Order your copy of Guide to Animals from the Institute for Creation Research by calling 800-628-7640 or visiting ICR.org. That's 800-628-7640 or visiting ICR.org.
The Lord your God, dwell in Zion, my holy mountain, and Jerusalem.
Welcome back to Science, Scripture, and Salvation, a radio ministry of the Institute for Creation Research. Here's Brian Thomas.
Are dinosaurs in the Bible? There may be one. There may be one described in Job chapter 40. But what makes a dinosaur? By definition, dinosaur is a reptile with legs that walked. It walked on land, and those legs were oriented straight underneath its body. So modern lizards are also reptiles with legs that walk on land. But lizards, crocodiles, even turtles, these reptiles, the legs go out to the side of the body and then down to the ground. But with dinosaurs, they went straight down to the ground. Now, there's nothing in the Bible that describes the orientation of the legs, but there are some descriptions of this creature called Behemoth in Job chapter 40 that are very difficult to fit with any other creature that we know from the zoo. The description in Job chapter 40 includes these kinds of details. His strength is in his hips, and his power is in his stomach muscles. Now we know from fossils and from clever investigation of dinosaur fossils that their center of balance for many of these dinosaurs was around the hips. And so they had large tails, large muscles that connected from the tail to bones within the hips near the hind legs, and they also had large muscles going forward that connected to the rest of the body in front of the legs. And in many cases, these dinosaurs had the rear hip was the highest part of their body. For example, certain sauropod dinosaurs had tall hips. They may have been able to stand on those hips. Well, what are the other candidates? The other candidates for Behemoth, if you have to restrict yourself to looking at just animals that are in the zoo, and then if you take the cues that are given in some of these study Bible notes, or even translation notes, then the other candidates would include elephant or hippopotamus. And certainly they do have strong hips. But with this creature, his power is in his stomach muscles. And here's the key. it says that he moves his tail like a cedar. Now, I've been to the zoo. I've seen elephants, and I've seen the little elephant tail, and it doesn't remind me of a cedar tree or any other kind of tree. And I've been to the zoo, and I've looked at hippopotami, and I've seen their little flap-like tail, and it doesn't remind me of a tree in any way. Not its shape, not its size, certainly not the way it moves. But when I look at dinosaur fossils, and I see reconstructions, for example, of some of these sauropod dinosaurs. These are the ones with the long, 30-foot long in some cases neck, 30-foot long tail, 100 feet long total, just enormous. These were the largest creatures that God ever made and placed on this planet. And here it does say in Job chapter 40 that he is the chief of the ways of God. Behemoth is the chief. What else can we say about that but that it must mean he's the biggest land creature God ever made? And God's making this point to Job. He's saying, look, you can't approach this ginormous creature, and as big as this creature is, the creature's creator, me, must be much bigger. And so, if the point is for God to say, look, I'm the big man around here, you can trust me. And you can know that I'm the big man because I am the creature's creator. The creature's large, I must be that much larger in power and in scope. So he was the largest. We also read in Job that he lies in a covert of reeds and marsh. The willows by the brook surround him. So he's by the brook.
Jesus said,
he's in a river. He's in a river bank. And he's in a marsh or swampy setting. Interestingly, we do know from fossils that sauropod and other dinosaurs were buried alongside swamp animals like turtles and birds and swamp birds like ducks and even some geese look like just like today's ducks and geese and even a fossil parrot, tropical birds, swamp birds, and frogs,
because
fish are buried right alongside with dinosaur fossils. This also fits. So the habitat described in Job of a creature that lived in a swampy environment, a creature with a large tail, a tail that reminds God, at least, who's giving this narrative to Job, of a tree. This fits best, I think, with a dinosaur, and probably a sauropod dinosaur described right here in the Bible, in Job, alive after the flood, but probably extinct today.
Thank you for joining us on Science, Scripture, and Salvation, a radio ministry of the Institute for Creation Research. That's all the time we have for our program today, but we would love to connect with you through our website at icr.org. For over 45 years, ICR has equipped believers with evidence of the Bible's accuracy and authority by showing how science supports the Genesis creation account. Our scientists research the evidence for creation and communicate their findings through books, articles, DVD series, and conferences. Please visit our website at icr.org for more information about the latest scientific discoveries, to subscribe to our free magazine and devotional, and to locate our next creation conference at a venue near you. All of this and more at icr.org. If you've enjoyed this podcast, subscribe to Science, Scripture, and Salvation on iTunes. Also, do us a favor and rate and review the show so that more listeners can find us. Thanks for listening, and God bless.
I was thinking about this kind of outburst that came from a heart filled with joy, and I was thinking about something else, and it's about